Hello everyone and welcome, yes, my name is Arafire, welcome back to another episode of Look Out and Shout, where today, after a fair bit of time, we are reviewing Studio Series 86 Swoop, leader class for Transformers the movie. I say we're reviewing Swoop, we're actually going to be reviewing all 5 of the Dinobots. Swoop was the last one out, yes, empty box, I've taken the figure out. This was, what, about 4 years waiting to get this set done? I mean, fans' toys weren't much longer, but we finally got a set of Dinobots. Now, as you'll know, I'm not the biggest Chug collector in the world. I've got some figures. I'm predominantly a masterpiece collector. But this set really got my attention. And with the earlier releases, I had to be in it all the way through. I had to see it through to the end. Swoop finally has come out. The box itself is very nice. We have a nice little artistic impression. It's really the 1986 movie, and has the backdrop that you can't necessarily see, but it is Autobot City that he's all going to be attacked and squashed by Devastator. On the back you have typical product shots of Robot and Dino mode, all typical Hasbro packaging. And that's it, we've got 5 bots to go through. Let's get into it, shall we? And here they all are together. Now, you remember way back when I did my Geiger Power Dinobot video, and I reviewed them all together. Although I could not get them in this kind of formation, but I'm going to go with a similar approach. We're going to go through all 5 of them in bot mode at the same time. Starting with their releases, their releasing order. We'll start with Grimlock. So, here he is in his robot mode, looking very Grimlocky. This came out a little while ago now, but really captured the imagination and what a Studio Series 86, and from the Transformers movie from 1986, but really a Generation 1 Grimlock should look like. And it looks brilliant, it looks stocky, it feels stocky. You may or may not be able to see there, but there is an Autobot symbol in his chest. This is like a smoky plastic texture. I always felt that this version of Grimlock, whilst it's really good and it was too good for me to pass up and ignore, the gold chest was arguably a bit dull, and it certainly doesn't come across well on camera. It's a bit better in person, but it's not vibrant, it's not chrome, and they've more or less kept with that kind of almost greeny yellow gold, the duller aspect of it throughout the set. We'll see a bit more of that later, but otherwise he looks really good. The light box isn't doing him many favours in terms of his head. It comes across very light absorbing, and in the flesh it's a bit better than that. Articulation is lovely. Some nice ratchets on a Chug figure, which is a rarity, but not so much. Well, it's a rarity at this time. It's got a bit more commonplace now. Bicep rotation. Bend at the elbow. Bit tight, just over a 90 bend, which is again very good. Now this is going to be the theme, and I want to talk about this a lot, but the hand articulation, it's just a closed fist, as you get with most Chug figures, and that's not bad. I'm not going to hold it against this set, not really, but I want to talk about this as a set as a whole, because none of them have opening and closing hands, and I feel Chug is at that stage now where they should have that as basic in these figures, particularly figures of this size. Going back to the head, left and right, up and down will come as slightly mistransformed if you pull back, but there is good looking down range because he was always a big bot. Waist rotation, very nice. And then out for the legs. No ratchet, but friction for the hip. Sideways, nice range. A more subtler ratchet for the knee, and a very nice ankle tilt. I mean, this is where it felt like the term mini masterpiece, and that's going to be bandied around a lot these days. This is what it felt like. It had a lot going for it that arguably Chug figures and Chug collectors didn't have in their toys anymore. The gun itself that it comes with is very faithful to Grimlock. It is his double barrel rifle, very iconic. Again, this is going to be a commonplace, but the gaps for when the hands fold out for Dino mode, it's apparent on all the figures, and a lot of people have said it's a criticism of the set. It is, but I don't know if you can hold it against it. Again, these are Chug figures. Gaps were common, and it's always kind of been the view of, well, if you don't want that, you don't have to pay this price mark. If you want them to be gone, you can pay masterpiece prices to have that clean aesthetic. But this is quite a step up for Chug. This possibly hasn't been so good. So I get the argument, but at the same time, don't expect too much. You're spending £50 or less or more in second market prices. The back of the bot looks very clean. We have the typical Dino head. I will say the arms for Dino and his wings do get in the way a little bit. They'll move back, but it's easier to knock them out of place, so he can look a little untidy at times. But for a first release, it's really, really good. Really nicely detailed. Just what you want from a G1 Grimlock. Moving on, next we have Slug. Now, I think this was my first one that I got. I think I got Slug first and then backtracked for Grimlock. The red is gorgeous. Arguably the prettiest looking figure. It just seems to really bounce off the light, whereas Grimlock, being sort of darker thighed and darker head and a sort of a dullish yellow, this is anything but dull colours. Even the grey seems a bit more reflective. There's white on the legs, there's red here. There is light, there is vibrance to bounce off. And if I can get a zoom in on that head, it's a brilliant head sculpt. Nice detailing in that. Blue tint on the eyes is gorgeous. Even makes the chest pop as well. There is a lot to like here. This is maybe the best figure of the set. It certainly, when it came out, it kind of drew even more attention. Grimlock was already good. This was arguably better. It did that bit more. So, yeah, it definitely made the point. It made the statement that this set could be on the up and up. And however good it is, well, I'll go through articulation first. Nice hard ratchets on the shoulder. Taking the front legs of Dino mode. Again, out on the side. Bit stiffer than Grimlock, not so loose. Bicep rotation on a slightly thinner arm compared to Grimlock. Elbow bend, very nice elbow bend. And no gappage really, because it more or less flips the hand underneath to put it away, which is nice. It's clean for hand and storage. Head rotation is a bit limited. You have to really get into the hood to do so, but he will look left and right. He will look down and he will look up, but he'll do the same mistransformation as Grimlock did. Waist rotation, my copy's a little stiff. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Nice ratchets on the hips, out at the side. Nice ratchets on the knee. And again, the same kind of ankle tilt, same joint that will be used. There is a lot to like about this figure. Just handling him now, you see a lot of it. He doesn't have any droopage. Nice gun, nice detailing. I don't know if you can see it, but it's got a nice little sight on the barrel. It's a very attractive figure. It's a very good looking figure. It comes across as that second in command war vibe. Okay, what I don't like about this is this. That's not meant to look like that. I've had tremendous trouble getting this to clip in and stay up. I don't know if it's just my copy. I've tried all variety of things, clipping him in place, but again, much like with Grimlock's wings, if you just knock it a little bit, it will come out again. And yeah, I don't know if it's just my copy on that, but that's a shame. It holds the figure back for what is an otherwise brilliant figure to look at, but you kind of have to have him resting against a wall to keep it all tidy. That's because it wants to just flop away a lot. If there is any plug-in connection, it's very loose. And yeah, Dino wings on Slug, it's pretty iconic as well. But yeah, that's a bit of a shame for what is an otherwise brilliant figure. And now we move on to Sludge. This is arguably my favourite Dinobot, but this figure, I remember thinking it at the time, feels like it's missing the sparkle that the previous two figures had. Particularly in robot mode, it just comes across very square, very basic, still good, but as these two kind of blow you away for their presentation, articulation, representation, whatever, Sludge just looks very blocky. He doesn't scream character. And you could argue Sludge as a robot doesn't have much character. But I shouldn't draw comparisons to third-party masterpiece, particularly the Gigabot Dinobots, is that their Sludge is arguably the best in robot mode. It's the prettiest. There's a bit more character going on. It looks great. And this just I keep coming back to that word of square, blocky and square. And I was disappointed at the time, and I don't like saying that because I've enjoyed the previous releases so much. Let's get in on the head sculpt. Even the head, like there's no neck. Maybe that is again befitting of the character. He was always considered the strongest, therefore the stumpiest looking maybe, but it's just square head into square chest, into square part of body, into slightly rounded arms and wings. And that's really his upper section. There's not much else to talk about here. There's no gold detailing, there's no popping red. Even the dino symbol looks somewhat forgettable compared to Slug's one that's printed on a nice grey background. It just comes across a bit ordinary, and I feel Sludge deserves that little bit more. But otherwise, he looks very good. I'll quickly show you some articulation. Softer ratchets, but ratchets nevertheless on the arms. Out, we're getting all the same bells and whistles on the figures generally. Bicep rotation, very stiff on my copy. Very stiff. Double elbow, I believe, well, not necessarily double elbow because it hits it. It wants to go further and there's enough gap on the underside, but these two parts, the bicep and the forearm, want to hit one another. And a wrist rotation, again, hand doesn't open. Nice waist movement, and we'll probably know where this is going. Slightly softer ratchet there, softer ratchet still. Now, ankle, it does open out. Again, all the same, you will get this kind of unsightly gap of the tail. That's the only thing. It's just its presentation that can come across a little bit lacking. Can't look down because it has no neck. Can look up. His gun as well is fine. I didn't recall it having a gold tip to it, gold accents, but this one does. It doesn't look too bad. Again, it's that quite dull gold. And he will, with the ratchets not being so harder, he will be easy to knot. His dino wings don't look too bad. He always kind of had the biggest wings, the roundest wings, so from the back he doesn't look all that bad. I'm never sure which way his head's supposed to go around. I guess away just looks a bit better. Maybe it's supposed to be front in. But that's how he looks, really. Yeah, I remember thinking at the time when I got him, he just lacks a bit of character compared to the previous two releases. He just comes across maybe how his character was always supposed to come across. A bit basic, a bit dopey, a bit solid, and a bit nothing special. Sludge never was anything special, but he was strong. And maybe this representation is supposed to present that. But the wow factor from the previous two figures just isn't here for me. But now the wow factor is back in full force. Here is Snarl, and there, believe me, is just life here. It is good, it's a good character. It just does that bit more that Slug before did. I see more of Slug's engineering in Snarl than I do for Sludge. Just things like the red chest, just the build, obviously the wings, the dino spikes, the legs, there's just that more going on here. The chest is where the eyes go, sorry, but it is a very chauvinistic comment. But it looks really nice, really solid. The detailing there is very good, even some gubbins on the side. The back of it, very nice. Glad to see that these aren't gaps as well. He does suffer from gappage behind the legs and on the inside of the leg. I'll open it up more. He possibly suffers with gappage as much as anyone. Not so much on the arms, but the legs. Yeah, it's an unsightly gap, I'll grant you, and his feet do look quite small. Maybe, but there's a lot to love about this figure. Now, he doesn't come with a gun, of course. You have to buy this as an upgrade kit. He's the only one who doesn't come with a gun. But by this point, he started to come with a sword. And there was a whole debate as to when they were releasing them is why they're not coming with swords. We're looking at third-party upgrade kits just to get swords. And now we're looking at third-party upgrade kits just to get Snarl a gun. I feel that's a bit of a miss on this set as a whole. They did not think properly about weaponry. All of them should have come with guns. All of them should have come with swords. And that's really it. They threw in other accessories, but it never felt as... It never felt right. It never felt the thing you should do. And yeah, the Dinobots are known for having weaponry, guns, you know, they're war machines. So the fact that Snarl only has a sword and Grimlock only has a gun, yeah, for the whole set there should have just been a blanket decision. But Snarl is lovely, and he just has that little bit more neck articulation or a neck full stop that Sludge didn't. He can look up, he can look down. Not very much he can't look down, he can do left and right. A hard ratchet on the shoulder, very hard. Out at the side. Bicep rotation, but lower down this time. You've got... Yeah, you have got a double elbow, but there's a bend at the back and there's a bend here. Bit of a cheeky way of doing it and part of the transformation, but I like it nevertheless. Again, waist rotation. Stiffer ratchet for the hip. Out of the side. Ratchets on the knees. And a very good ankle tilt, but again, that gappage. I mean, look, you can see Slug all the way through it. It is an eyesore. It's done with transformation in mind. He can come slightly mistransformed at times. The sword's very nice, but my only issue with it is once this one came out with Snarl, it kind of dictated what the other swords should look like for a complete set. And as you can see, his colleague in the background there, who we'll get to in a minute, we've now got different colouring swords. And will that bother some people? Well, it would certainly bother me. If I'd have all 5 Dinobots using swords, I want the swords to look the same. And Snarl came with a sword, and it's going to look different, or you're going to have to pay for a third-party upgrade to get a sword that's similar to go for the rest of them. Again, I feel they should just throw out swords with them right from the start, and then it wouldn't have been an issue. The back of Snarl, as I showed you briefly, clears up very, very nice. He's just got a lot going on. He looks really good. There's a lot of Slug in this figure. He's got a lot of playability. He's got a lot of fun factor. He feels deft and heavy in the hand. I do really like him. One of my favourites of the set, but his gappage at the bottom of the legs. Yeah, I mean, there's gaps on all of them in one form or another, which you can buy upgrade kits for. Whether you feel you need it or not is up to you. I would say Snarl certainly does lean more into the yes category for that than the no. And finishing off with Swoop. After a long time of waiting, we finally have him in hand. I don't know why it took so long, but we got him. And he is lovely to look at. He's got that stature. He stands that smidgen shorter than the others. I think that's right. There was a lot of people saying, would he be Voyager class? Would he be leader class? Would he be this? Would he be that? I felt he always had to be leader class, but he's just that shade smaller. And for me, it works. The blue colouring is spot on. There is a lot to like about this character. For me, they get the head and his rather large chin very, very well. It's almost chrome, it's not. It's a metallic sheen paint, but I love his dino chest plate there for his dino head mode being the chest plate. I just feel there's a lot to like, and again, the Autobot symbol plumb in the centre looks very, very good. It's just a really, really good figure. There's a bit of unsightly gubbins at the back there. That could do with being a bit smoother maybe if you're going to get nitpicky. But he looks fabulous. The accents as well on the legs and the knees. His dino claws are very, very good. The feet are the biggest issue for me. Straight away, once you get them kind of locked in, fine. But he will have a tendency to fall backwards. I don't think these are completely secure. There is ankle tilt, there is stability, but you just have to set him right. And I feel he's suffering more with that than any of the others. Even Slug, who will have backpack issues, doesn't have problems standing. Going into articulation for Swoop, we have left and right, a bit stiff. It can look up nicely and down a bit. No ratchets on the arms. A little bit surprising that. Bicep rotation, much looser than the others. Bit stiff at the hip, we'll get there in a minute. 90 degree, only 90 degree at the elbow, and a wrist rotation. He's holding his 2 sword accessories. Doesn't come with guns, but comes with his missile launchers for his wings, which whilst they were there in the cartoon, he can hold them as guns as well. Waist rotation, but then the bird beak gets in the way. Yeah, that's a bit of a shame. Not much that could be done really, short of moving it up. But then what do you do? Yeah, it's awkward that. No ratchets on the side. Bend friction as well. He's got that same engineering to it and a bit of a toe tilt, but that'll be transformation. But yeah, interesting that the figure doesn't come with any fixed ratchets. Does he need to? It would have made him heavier, and he is a smaller figure. It's just surprising, particularly when you wait as long as you have to get this figure. Again, he suffers with the gappage, and arguably more so than Grimlock. It's much more noticeable, particularly on slender arms. It's a shame that I would have liked something that just kind of folds down and closes, but we're getting into what should Chug figures have nowadays, plus what you get with masterpiece quality. Now I'll show you the wings, because I like that he can do this. Now it's much more for Dino mode in mind, but I like how it looks that you can have it all spread out to give a much more of a wingspan. I'm a sucker for a wingspan, as you know, but I would do this again with my Geiger Power Swoop. I would have the wings out because it's a nice feature of Swoop that he's got that kind of presence and wingspan. It will make him hard to store, but yeah, he looks quite cool. You can have the wings out in either mode. And there he is holding his wing guns. He can do it. They peg in nicely. They look like a shallow connection, but they hold fine. But then, of course, he can't hold his swords. And I don't think... I mean, you can store them at the back. It's just going to look a little bit unsightly. Or you can stick them on the arms. I mean, you can, but why would you? Now, okay, while Swoop is going to hold that, let's put him to one side for a second. Let's talk about the fact that he comes with two swords, and they look quite a bit different. Now, I wouldn't say it's massively uncommon for Swoop to have two swords. He's got that much more ninja kind of vibe to him. But really, this is going to be a case of they realised, Hasbro, that they didn't come with swords for the rest of the Dinobots. Thrown in two swords that Swoop can hold one, another one can hold another, but then what do you do then? They did then release a comic accurate version of Grimlock that would come with three swords that would effectively say he can have a sword, he can have a sword, he can have a sword, and your comic book one as well. Again, I think that's a bit of a bad trait from Hasbro. They should have just released it right from the start. What they could have done, and arguably should have done, is just throw in 5 swords with Swoop as the last figure and say, there you go, you can have 5 swords with him. He's got enough ports, he could probably hold them all. He'd be very armoured up. But yeah, now you've got to go out your way to get that complete armoury look, if you want to. I don't mind Swoop holding 2 swords, but I will be on the lookout to getting swords for the rest of them. It just feels weird that Swoop has 2, Snarl has 1, and yet Grimlock, Slug and Sludge don't have 1 between them. So that's a bit of a miss for me. Now, just because I'm a bit tight for room, Swoop is a long way off to the side, but let's do some comparisons. Here they are alongside War for Cybertron Kingdom Pipes. He looks like he's stumbled into the wrong room and really wants to get out very quickly. No contest, different line, I suppose, but again, you see the advancements of Chug, and I'll talk about this more in final thoughts, but that's how he looks. Just no contest. War for Cybertron Kingdom Cyclonus. This is much more like it, I think. Cyclonus was not small, but these Dinobots, I think that really only one bot can stand eye to eye with the likes of Grimlock and the rest of them, and that will probably be Ultra Magnus. But other than that, no one else comes close, and that just feels like the right height. So if I get Swoop in, you can maybe see, as he's the smallest one, he still stands quite a bit taller than him. So yeah, I think that works, and we've had, again, quite a bit of advancements of time from when Cyclonus was released. Okay, let's get these guys into their dinosaur mode, shall we? Or beast modes, dare I say. And here they all are in their dino modes, and this is the first time I've had all 5 of them in their dinosaur modes together. It is quite a sight, it is quite cool. You do get a sense of completion with these guys. There is 1 or 2 issues, and there's 1 or 2 that are better than others, and there's 1 or 2 that arguably would benefit from an upgrade kit. But nevertheless, let's get into it. So, like with before, we'll start with Grimlock. I do think Grimlock, much like in robot mode, suffers from being the first release, and seeing it in dino mode kind of only compounds the issue. The transformation for Grimlock is very straightforward. We've done it for years. He transforms pretty much the same every time. And he's a brilliant figure. He's a brilliant sculptor, Grimlock. I just think when you look at maybe his grey paint scheme, particularly around by the tail, it's looking maybe a little bit sad, perhaps. I don't think it's necessarily my copy or how I stored it. I just think it suffers from being the first release, and I wonder how Grimlock would have looked if he was the last release instead of Swoop. You kind of can see, just looking at it now, not for a comparison, but there's just a bit more polish, a bit more shine here that maybe Grimlock either did have and has faded over time, or didn't have to begin with. But a Grimlock, it really is. It does have a noticeable gap at the top, and you can get all manner of upgrade kits. There's been enough of it by now. But looking at the figure, you can just about see the blue eyes. I don't think the camera's going to show it, but other than that, it cleans up well. Sometimes there's a bit of tabbing in issue with the legs. There's a lot of plastic to get together. Articulation's pretty good on the hands. It's going for that screen accuracy. It's very much a chalky, almost cream white rather than a brilliant white. And in terms of poses, you can hold quite nicely because the ratchets are quite stiff, so you can get a good raw on the go. The only thing that's a slight shame is you get ankle tilt for his dino feet, which fold up here, but as these are the arms of robot mode, you don't get an ankle tilt in dino mode because that's his elbow and forearm. So you can't go for necessarily a wide stance without doing the Bobby Skullface Fans Toys Ethereum thing. It's not really fair to do that, but it's just something that I've noticed. But transformation is absolutely fine. He is really good, but he possibly is suffering from being the first Dinobot that came out and maybe has been surpassed by his colleagues. But it's still a very nice Grimlock. Next we have Slug. I thought when I first saw his alt mode that he came across a bit stumpy, and maybe he does in some angles. But the transformation on him is brilliant. The fact that there's like this butterfly hinge that also Swoop has, and I'll get into that in a minute. How it kind of cascades an otherwise wide chest into a much more narrow one to get the spikes around the head all tied in. It's brilliant engineering. He is quite a standout figure. He can suffer from gappage on the side of his horns. That's a bit of a shame. You can again get upgrade kits. But he does kind of look a little bit short in the body, maybe. And the tail is a bit on the shorter side, but his gun sticking out a bit, that's actually good weapon storage. I like that, and it just elongates the tail. But with him kind of being fairly thin on the legs, the back legs are very non-existent, he can give that stumpy look, but he's still very, very nice. No head rotation, which I think is a little bit of a shame. I would have liked that. And you'll have all of the leg bends and whatever, but how much posability are you going to do with a Triceratops? I like the mouth open. You could have a flame accessory, perhaps, if it would come with an upgrade kit. And I do like that the weapon storage is there. I think maybe alt mode for Slug is a little bit, not ordinary. Ordinary is not the right word, but it's just maybe not got as many thrills once it's there. The transformation is very, very nice, and it's still got a lot to offer. Still has a nice bit of character. There is just a bit more shine on his head sculpt, on the gold we use in, say, Grimlock. So I don't know if it's just the light, but you can see the light reflects off Slug's head much more than, say, Grimlock's neck. Okay, the light's coming down and maybe not reflecting up, but yeah, just the first thing that hits you is that Slug has a bit more life to him, and that comes across in robot mode and dino mode as well. Next we have Sludge. Now, whilst I might have been a bit brutal to him in his robot mode, his dino mode is brilliant. There is a lot to like here. It is just got that real presence for something of this size. It's got that length that Diplodocus should have. I will say he probably is the, I want to say hardest, maybe. Things will come unpegged a little bit. Like, there's a lot to get these dino wings across, and then his big chest to rotate back, the legs under as well as over. You do spend a lot of time clipping things into place that then unclip and then you clip again. But it is a brilliant, brilliant looking alt mode. The head sculpt is very nice. I think maybe with a dino mode like this, you always wish it was a bit bigger. You always wish the neck was a bit longer or the tail went out a bit further. And again, you can get upgrade kits for it. But Grimlock stands the tallest. And I'm no paleontologist, but would you want Sludge's neck to stand above anything else that the Dinobots have to offer? He has a more curved neck that does have some movability to it, but you want it to sort of tower up to maybe here. And yeah, he covers a lot of ground. It's a very nice alt mode. You just always wonder, should it be a little bit longer, a little bit better? But the head sculpt is nice. There's a lot of character in that face. The fierceness of the angling of the eyes, even though it's a blue, placid looking, the sharp teeth give it a real aggressive look. Nice jaw opening, head rotation. And you can go all the way up for that, so you can give a full neck back roar. You can stomp, of course. He has got the tiniest, most pathetic front feet, but he can actually sort of sit back a little bit and do a full two-legged stand, so we can go full stretch. The back legs carry the more stability, and there's a lot of weight in the back half of the figure anyway, so, well, I say that, he's just fallen over. Thanks for that. Maybe he's going for the Devastator smash at that point with the eyeballs popping out. Again, you can get this as an upgrade kit. But that's how he looks. He's a good figure. I think, much like this Slug, there's a lot of character to be had here. He's got a gun inside the mouth as well to shoot. But again, it just comes a little bit untabbed, so you have to watch for that. And if you can just about see a little black gun inside there. So that's fine. And yeah, he's very, very nice. No tail articulation. The Dino mode of the Geiger Power Sludge was very, very good. So I am not surprised that Hasbro managed to do a really good job with him here as well. It's getting a little crowded here now. Here is Snarl. Possibly the most involved transformation. Can be quite fiddly in some parts. Clever as well, but I probably completed the other ones a lot quicker and I had to come back and do Snarl again. Also, you might as well look at it whilst we're here. This has kind of become known. There is a bit of a nasty looking gap on his head because that's where the two legs and therefore two splits of his dino head join together, and it often leaves this gap. It's quite unsightly. What I've actually done is whenever I've taken a photograph of him, I've gone back and kind of coloured it in because it is quite an unsightly gap. I even have heard for some people the Autobot symbol, as it splits on both sides of the dino face, mismatched and then would slightly be up and slightly be down. Yeah, quality control wasn't great in some releases. But otherwise, very, very cool. The dino's spines really shining here. There's a lot going on. The tail does have a tendency to drag. I have got it off the ground just, but you have to kind of position the legs to stand up ahead of the tail. I think the tail could do with having maybe like a hinge to put it, say, back, pointing in that direction almost, but it's kind of going straight down with a slight curve in it. Yeah, a minor nitpick. It's a very nice, very stocky, very chubby dino mode. You can put his sword on the back here, which I think is a little bit of a rubbish storage, if I'm honest. If it was his gun, I would have maybe felt different about it, but it's nice to have weapon storage, but putting a sword on his back, no, I'm not so sure. I do like it. The mouth could open a bit and he's got the little leg articulation, but kind of anything you do is only going to cause his tail to drag across the ground, so maybe a bit limited, maybe a bit more of a fiddly transformation, but very nice nevertheless. And finishing off with the blue-eyed boy, Swoop. Would you believe the first time I transformed it? Not a hard transformation. Swoop generally hasn't been. He kind of folds up. As you kind of know with Grimlock, the legs go around the back, the arms tuck into the side. I keep wanting to like shove the arms up and cascade them further, but I don't think you can. I think that's how you're supposed to do it. You can peg them into the back of the wings for a bit more stability. As you can see, there's this bit of an unattractive gap here that I've noticed. This could just be my copy, but whilst you cascade the chest in, much like you can with Slug, I can't get it to stay fully flush. Maybe I've got to untransform it and do it again. But I really like how he looks. The dino beak, bird head, really kind of shines here. The wingspan does as well, but I think that's got a lot of life to it, a lot of reflectiveness, much like with Slug as well. There's just, again, that bit more shine to the figures. You can see there's got more colour reflectiveness. They're fairly bright colours, but I kind of feel the silver and grey on Slug is quite reflective. And whilst the grey is okay on here, but we got the blue and the red and the gold for the beak. These two just kind of pop a bit more under the light. I really like Swoop. The more I look at him, the more I like him, the more I handle him, he's really good. He will have a tendency to, not lean, but he will come a little bit untransformed in parts. And you can move it back to having more in fly mode. And I think if I could get some kind of flying stand on the go, that would look really nice, having them in some kind of squad formation. But it is a lovely G1 Swoop. There's a lot to like here. The beak can go all the way open. Again, he's got his kind of blue shooter there. They've nailed these sets. There's so much to like out of all of them. To get a completed Dinobots set, man, it looks good. And it took a long time. We finally got there with Swoop. But Hasbro have shown what they can do with Chug figures. I suppose I'm going to show you a couple of accessories that I kind of forgot to show with the individuals. Grimlock comes with Wheelie. I'll just put him down there. And Slug comes with Daniel in an exosuit. Now, wheelie clips onto the back of Grimlock's neck. I mean, I guess that's right. I've never done it. I've never felt inclined to do it. It's fine. It's offering from the 1986 movie, which I get it, but it's a bit of a funny thing to do for one scene, and it's a bit of a shame that his legs are always rigid, that he can't do anything else other than clip into him. So I've actually got him perching on one of the shelves with my other movie bots. It's nice enough that he's done it. Daniel, on the other hand, now this is where I get a little bit disingenuous with it, that this wasn't really necessary. Does he sit? I'll be perfectly honest, I don't care about it. That's why I'm not really trying. I think it's quite a lazy look for Daniel. We got like a misted face. It doesn't even remotely transform or shows that it could. And I wouldn't have said that it was a particular pairing of Slug in the 86 movie, of all the accessories that could have come with him. I didn't see the need as to why they felt to do this, justify the leader price point. I think both Daniel and Wheelie could have been left out, if I'm honest. I don't have much love for them. I think, again, we would have done better had we have got swords with all 5 of the members rather than gimmicks like that. It's like trying to organise bodybuilders at a gym. They keep bumping into one another. The only comparison I've got is going to be my oversized Sharkticon. Maybe this is when you look and say the oversized doesn't scale with these guys so much. But yeah, they share the same screen, big old fight, makes sense. And that's kind of how I got them displayed on the shelf. But that's all I can really offer to you for a comparison. So what is my view on the Dino Dodos? They are brilliant when it shows you what Hasbro can do. These aren't your typical chug figures. Now, yes, they're leader class as well, so you should expect there to be all the bells and whistles that you'll really get through chug figures, generation figures. Again, I'm not the biggest chug collector, but when you look at some of their other offerings, I always kind of feel they're nice to a point. They're fun to play with, and they're fairly forgettable. Not you want to get rid of them necessarily, but you've had your fun with them and then you put them on the shelf. With these guys, there's just that bit more. And this is what I feel Hasbro can do and what they can pull off when they put away this, I'll say the moniker that's been thrown around a lot now, mini masterpieces. They really are. We see it now with the upcoming Optimus Prime, the Commander class, what they can do. It does make me wonder, if you can do this, why don't you do it more often? Why doesn't your basic chug figures have some of the stuff that these guys do? I think the transformation for Slug is really, really good. Same with Swoop. There's real intuitive stuff here. Okay, Dinobots will always transform similar ways anyway, but it shows you what they can do. Now, let me talk about possible issues with this set. I think there is still things like, look, big gappages. It shows you what they can do, but it shows you things that they should be doing a bit better. The articulation is brilliant. The ankle tilt, I've seen some masterpiece figures that don't have so many ankle tilt. The gaps are a little bit annoying, and I feel like I've chastised a lot of masterpiece figures, fans toys to pick a name, if they don't include waist rotation or double elbows on articulated figures, but you're paying a masterpiece price point. Coming back into chug figures, some of these gaps and hollow parts, particularly legs, we see that a lot. I know it's cheaper, but it looks cheap, it looks basic, and these figures can't be so good and yet have some of those basic flaws. I feel we're past that now. Let me talk about, and I know I've got these all in Dino mode, but let me talk about things like the hands for robot mode. I think maybe with some of the Commander class figures we're getting past this now. We can't have closed fists anymore, that you just put a weapon in. You need to have opening and closing hand. They don't have to be individually articulated fingers, but you need to have opening and closing hands for expression, if nothing else. It doesn't need to enhance a hold or not, but I feel, again, we're past that now. Much like some of the gaps we see, like Snarl in robot mode, the gaps on the inside of his legs, would it have been so hard to have some kind of shutter that you pull down a piece of plastic to swallow off the gap? Again, that happens in Masterpiece. I feel like we're getting there with these figures. Maybe this set is a victim of its own success. Maybe it shows what chug figures could be like. Will they all be like this going forward? I doubt it. I think the Dinobots are a special case because they're all really, really good. Minor QC issues on Snarl. the line down the middle, I've known people to have problems with it. It's an annoying gap. You can't do anything about it. There's always going to be that partition there. Some minor nitpicks, but honestly, it's a wonderful set. I don't think I covered this off, but the best one in robot mode, I would go with probably Snarl. The weakest one I will go with is probably Sludge. I hate to say it because I like him as a character, but I feel in robot mode he's a bit lacking. For Dino mode, where do you pick it? Sludge is absolutely brilliant in Dino mode. He's very, very good. I do like Swoop. I like all of them. Or I could upset a few people, but I think the worst one in Dino mode maybe is Grimlock. And it's not because he's necessarily bad and the gap of the teeth at the front is mildly annoying, but the others are so good. Slug is very good, but I might have to go with Sludge for best looking Dino mode. It's a very, very good set. Again, it shows you what Chug figures can do now. And it shows you that where the advancements in engineering has come, it gives you good hope for the Generations line, that what their Commander class figures can be like, and how early reports of the Commander class Optimus Prime, the Studio Series 86 version, is looking really good, really sharp. But this set, I mean, second-hand prices are getting irresponsible. They're getting very, very hard work to justify, but you're paying £100 for some of these because they're becoming rare items and they're well sought after. Supply and demand, I get it. Are they worth £100? No, they're worth about £60 if I'm being honest, but they're great figures. It's a brilliant, brilliant set. We're going to see more of them. We're going to see re-releases. We've already seen Grimlock in cartoon colours, comic covers rather. So I fully expect to see a blue one in the fullness of time. I think we'll see some other maybe variants of repaints that we didn't get. There's a lot of money to be had here for Hasbro. It is such a good set. Whatever mode you want to display them in, they are so good. And I've said before, it's very hard to mess up the Dinobots. It's very hard to get them wrong. They are quite simple in their way, but you can present them to come across so well. So let's go through a quick scoring of all 5 of the bots. We'll take into account their robot modes and their beast modes. Grimlock, 3.5 Rodimus Star Badges. Slug, 4 Rodimus Star Badges. Sludge, 3.5 Rodimus Star Badges. Snarl, 4 Rodimus Star Badges. And Swoop, 4 Rodimus Star Badges. The only thing that really holds them all back a little bit is the fact that they don't come with swords. I don't like that so much. I think that's something that Hasbro could have done better. Also, I'm not wild on these 2 as accessories. I feel they were just kind of thrown in to justify the leader price point, which weren't really necessary, and I don't think anyone really cares for them. But it does give you hope, if you're a Generations collector, that this kind of engineering can exist down at this level. You don't have to pay the masterpiece prices for it. It just shows that Hasbro will take their engineering seriously, what they can do, what limits they can stretch, and how they can go forward. But just go forward that little bit more. Let's have the opening and closing hands as a fairly standard on most figures. I'm not saying it needs to come down to deluxe and the real small figures, but leader class, yeah, I feel we're at that stage now, considering what else they've managed to achieve here. And there we go. That is my review of the Studio Series 86 Dinobots set. It's been a great set. It's taken a bit of a while, but I'm really glad we've got all 5 of them. They look so good. It's a high recommend from me. So I'll stick some photos up at the end. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button, because I will see you on the next one.